Okay, there are two types of logistics systems. We have outbound logistics systems, or physical distribution, which refers to the process, systems, and capabilities that enhance an organization's ability to serve its customers. Correspondingly, inbound logistics systems refer to the activities and processes that precede and facilitate the value-adding activities such as procurement, manufacturing, and assembly. This chapter focuses on demand management, which might be thought of the focused efforts to estimate and manage customer demand, with the intention of using this information to shape operation decisions. Traditional supply chains typically begin at the point of manufacture or assembly and end at the sale of the product to the customer or a business buyer. The essence of demand management is to further the ability of the firms throughout the supply chain, particularly manufacturing through its customers, to collaborate on activities related to the flow of products, services, information, and capital. Demand management seeks to satisfy customers and solve customer problems, such as gathering and analyzing knowledge about the customer, the problems, and their unmet needs, identifying partners to perform the functions needed in the demand chain, moving the functions that need to be done to the channel member or partner that can perform them most effectively and efficiently, sharing with other supply chain members knowledge about the customer and the customer needs using available technology and things like that, developing products and services that solve customers' problems, and developing and executing the best logistics, transportation, distribution methods to deliver products and services to the customers in a desired format. There was a lot I said in that first slide. The essence of this is we're looking at our customers. We're trying to figure out what their problems are. We're trying to figure out what their problems might be before they even know about it. And then we have a lot of partners that we work with within our company and externally to solve those problems. And we want to solve them the best way we can, as effectively and efficiently as we can. And that takes a lot of collaboration, again, internally and externally. So demand management is all about collaboration. Collaborating on the flow of products, on services, on information, even collaborating on the use of capital. But we have a lot of problems doing this. We lack coordination between our departments within our company. Sometimes we put too much emphasis on forecasting, and we think forecasting is going to solve our problems, and we don't put as much effort in collaborating and working together. And sometimes we use the information we have in a very tactical way. And when we say tactical, we're saying what we have to get done today or this week, more than a strategic way. Okay, this is our data. What does that tell us? And how can we use this to make the supply chain better in the future? Okay, this is one of the problems that we face in demand management. It's a term called phantom demand. What happens is we have true customer demand, which is depicted by that dashing line that's going through the chart. So that's true customer demand. Now the channel says, wow, this is going to be a hot selling item, say like an iPhone, and we're going to tell Apple that we're going to sell more than we really think we're going to, because we want to make sure we have enough product. So the channel or the distribution, AT&T, Verizon, whatever, says that they're going to sell a lot more than they're really going to sell. So they order more and tell their Apple that they're going to sell more than that dash line. Production was not really ready for the dash line, so it's actually starting slow. What we have is channels saying we're selling a ton when they're really not, but they're selling a lot more than production can make. And that's one of the reasons why they're saying I'm selling a ton. So production ramps up, trying to come up to what the channel is actually asking for. Then demand falls off sharply, and then we get overproduction because we have these false signals. So in other words, the partners within the supply chain aren't talking to each other well. They're not collaborating. They're not trusting each other. They're giving false information to each other. And because of that, we're getting underproduction and overproduction and tons of inefficiencies throughout the supply chain. And in the end, we have unsatisfied customers. You really need to understand the term phantom demand and understand how that affects the supply chain. Okay, so when we're looking at balancing supply and demand, what we're saying is we have a lot of variation in demand, and there's ways that we can control that. The external methods are changing the way the customers ask us for products or how much they're asking us for. We usually can do that by changing the demand by changing the price. So the higher the price we charge, the less demand for that product. Yeah, there's pluses and minuses to that. The other thing we can do is change the lead time. So if I normally say that you order it today and I can get it to you in a week, now I say, hey, production's slow, I can only get it to you in 2 weeks, chances are people will lower their demand for that product if it's not available here and now or in the next few days. On the internal methods, we can have production flexibility, meaning that I have multiple production lines all producing different things, and we might get an increase in demand for one thing and a decrease in another, so we can change our production line B to support production A, thus fulfilling the demand that our customers have. And being flexible, we can move with the customer demand that way. Another thing that we can do is just increase our inventory levels. We can increase them at the finished goods state or the raw state or the WIP state. It really doesn't matter, but the idea is that the more inventory we hold, the more flexible we can be to the changes in customer demand. Holding more inventory, or what we call having more safety stock, is probably one of the most expensive ways to meet the changes in the variation in customer demand. Now there are two types of demand. We have independent demand, and then we have the dependent demand. Independent demand is demand on the thing in and of itself. So say we have demand for a bicycle. So I want to sell, or the customer wants to buy 20 bicycles. That's independent demand. The dependent demand is the material we use to make those bicycles. The independent demand is the bicycle. The dependent demand is the demand for wheels. So if we have independent demand of 20, we have dependent demand of the wheels for 40, because there's 2 wheels per bike normally. Those are things that we'll get into later. They deal with BOMs or bills of materials, stuff we'll talk about more later. Forecasting, we forecast on independent demand normally, and then we'll push that into dependent demand. There are 4 main ways that we forecast. I want you guys to focus on simple moving average and weighted moving average. Those are the only 2 that I want you to look at right now. And I'll have videos that you need to link into, and they're probably going to be like 3 or 4 minute videos, maybe 5 minutes. It just goes over how do we forecast with simple moving average or weighted moving average. I might have a video explaining exponential smoothing. It'll just be for you to look at. You don't have to know how to do that, but you should know how to do a simple moving average forecast and a weighted moving average forecast. So we use forecast to figure out how much we'll probably need in a given time period so that production can make that stuff for us. But one thing that is consistent. One thing that's consistent with all forecasts are that they're wrong. So how wrong are they? And that's important, because if we know how wrong they are, then we can still use this information effectively with our manufacturing and our buying and making sure that we have what the customer needs when they want it most of the time. So there's different ways that we can measure forecast error, and these are 4 ways. The cumulative sum of forecast errors, we're looking at a forecast, say we're forecasting 200, and this month we only needed 190. Again, we forecast 200, and next month we needed 210. And so 1 month we're under 10 and 1 month we're over 10. The problem with that is that when we're looking at the error, those cancel each other out, and it might seem like that we have a 100% accurate forecast. So that's one of the problems with this cumulative sum of forecast errors. So we try to get around that by doing various things. We can take the mean square, which is the average of the square of the error, and that way we get rid of the positive and minuses, because -1 minus -1 is 1, that type of thing. Or we use the absolute value. So we're looking at the standard deviation of the absolute value, and that's helpful. But these are just different ways that we can look at forecast error.